mean, the logistics of this alone are horrendous. More important than that, though, is that there's no evidence that this is better. Just because I have a Mother's Day card from my youngest child. I have three children. The first two were Stepford children. Elizabeth is my not Stepford children child. And she's adorable and wonderful and happy and healthy and all those good things and lives in Philadelphia now. But for Mother's Day, she sent me a card that said, here's all my friends jumping off a bridge. And you open up inside and say, here's me not doing it. And the message is, thanks for, giving me the confidence not to do what everyone else does, basically. The problem in this subdividing thing is that's what most other states do. This is the model for most other states. And so many of our legislators see that and wonder why Florida's doing it differently. We had one hearing in the House last week on this bill, and the thing that I found most alarming was legislators contemplating putting this on the ballot and getting it passed, and then figuring out later whether it was a good idea or how to implement it. It was astonishing that they would promote something that could be as cataclysmic as this without much thought about whether or not it's a good idea, how it will work, when are we going to do it, what are the logistics. And the biggest issue is not so much that this is a bad idea. The biggest issue is going from what we have to something else. And that's what requires a bit more thought and contemplation. So Representative Caldwell and Senator Brandes have invited people to share their thoughts on this bill. I hope that you all will do that and perhaps express some concerns. Again, we have some talking points on this on our website. A very troubling proposal, so please register your concern. I think you all have historically always been concerned about charter school bills. Again, I don't think it's because anyone in particular doesn't like charter schools. It's more, what's the accountability and who's going to them and how did they get opened and did the school district really need this, and all of the other implications that often don't get properly considered. There are about half dozen charter school bills filed this session, none of which are exactly the same, but the major vehicles are contain some really good provisions, but they also contain some that are very troubling. So I can give you a list, but probably the one that is most worth keeping your eye on is House Bill 7029, which is a committee bill. It's not by an individual, but that's a House bill. It would create high-impact charter schools that were supposedly be to assist poverty areas and those kinds of things. Again, if charter schools were demonstrated to be better than a traditional public school, that might be different, but in fact, charter schools are roughly the same. No better, no worse. Some really good, some really bad, just like traditional public schools. But if they were consistently better, we might not worry about these. But because charter schools are so often described as being superior, and there are so many legislators who are so supportive of charter school legislation, that it can be troubling to try and pursue some of these. You need to understand, a lot of times my own members, my school board members that come up for a meeting similar to this, will say, I really don't need to go see my representatives or my senators because they're not on an education committee. You need to know that, most of them aren't. Most of them are on something else. And that's exactly why you need to see them. Because if you don't go see them, the only people talking to them are the ones that are in leadership. The only ones that are telling them, what's good and what's bad are the ones that are in leadership positions. They have to hear from you, even if it means, and this is something PTA is very good at, educating them first. You may need to start from ground zero and say, here's how this started, this is what was intended, this is what it's become, this is why we're worried, this is why we need your help. So when this bill comes forward, please be sure and ask these questions. At a minimum, encourage them to ask questions. And it's so important not to overlook those members who are not members of education committees. Calling legislators out for their appearance of a conflict can have value, but it can also be damaging. Because at the end of the day, remember, these are the people that are making the decisions. But you're right, having the information out there can be valuable. It's just under what guise and under whose name that you might want to pursue that. And I would strongly encourage you, please don't ever walk up to a legislator and say, you have a conflict of interest and you're voting anyway. I know you wouldn't do that. I know you're smarter than that, and I know you're more experienced. But the media will do it. And if you have media friends, that may be a venue. Certainly a venue we have used. These people are not your enemy. You know, as angry as you may get, as frustrated as you may get, they're not your enemy. And there is always a path to some topic, some issue that you can forge a connection. And the value to that is you forge the connection over the things you can, and then when you come back to them on the issue you don't agree on, you have more chutzpah now. You got a little more wheels. You got a little more power because they recognize you as a reasonable, thoughtful person. So that gives you more power and authority rather than simply highlighting the things you disagree about. It is my very firm and complete belief that one of the things that could solve most of the problems in public education is public school choice. So don't misunderstand what I'm about to say. These bills would allow any parent to go to any school that had space available, not only within the district, but within the state. Now, again, we were talking about subdividing school districts a little while ago. Start thinking about what problems that would create. Now think about the fact that these bills don't provide any particular timeline. Once a child gets into another school, they get to stay there till they graduate or matriculate to the next level. So you have a school that has a seat, and a kid from the other side of Jabip comes and takes that seat. And then a child moves into the neighborhood and should have been able to go to that school, but now can't because that seat's been taken. Here's the problem with both of these bills. In trying to promote the rights of one group of students, you're sacrificing the rights of another. This is far too complicated. This is not that simple, and they're trying to make it simple. And that's the easy way out. You know, for every complex problem, there's at least one answer that is simple and popular and wrong. And these are both wrong answers. So I hope you'll pay attention to these because these can be cataclysmic in your school districts. Truly cause tremendous upheavals.